Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1899B, and today's date is June 21st, 2019, and the title of the episode is Patriots Are Now Dismantling and Defunding the Deep State, Messages Transmitted. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the Patriots, they just set up the deep state. Right now, the Patriots, they are in the process of dismantling and defunding the deep state operatives. And this needs to be done to move forward. Because without funds, they can't carry out operations. They can't push their agenda. And this is exactly what the Patriots are doing right now. The blocks have been removed. All those individuals, they have been removed. Now we're moving into another phase where we're going after their currency, their income. We're removing the funds and allowing their system to be dismantled at the same time. Think back to the Islamic State. And those people that have been following me, they understand what I'm talking about right now. In Syria, the Islamic State, which was a deep state paid mercenary army, they were being funded by the oil revenue, which they stole from Syria, brought up into Turkey, and Erdogan took that oil and sold it off. And this is how they were funding the entire operation in Syria. Now, Russia came in, and this was before Trump was even elected. Russia came in and Putin said, hey, this is easy. Why don't we just go after the oil convoys? Here they are. All we got to do is bomb them and destroy their entire brigade of oil tankers. Well, he went ahead and he did that. Guess what happened? Well, they lost their revenue. They couldn't fund their operations anymore. That was one of the first things that Putin did. And then when Trump got elected, he joined in. That's what's happening right now to the deep state. They are defunding their operations, removing the ability to fund their operations. And once they do that, they can dismantle them very easily. And we're going to be talking about all of this a little bit later in this report. But first, I wanted to start off with Roger Stone. And we know that he's using Discovery to get information about the DNC server, WikiLeaks, CrowdStrike, and he wants the unredacted report to CrowdStrike. And we know from all of this that the FBI, they never investigated anything. They probably don't even have the real report because there was never any report. Well, the judge is trying to stop him right now. And the judge is saying that Roger Stone violated the gag order. Now, this is very interesting because Roger Stone has not commented on the case, the Mueller report, the prosecution, or the court, or the judge. He retweeted something that was already out there. Stone added the following: how can my commenting on matters the government say are irrelevant to my case violate the gag order not to comment on matters relevant to my case? Well, that's a very good question. The reason why they're doing this is because they're trying to stop him. Because once this information gets to him and his attorneys look at it, and then other people start to realize, oh, wait a minute, there's never been a report. The FBI had nothing. How did they come to this conclusion? Everything starts to fall apart. And right now, the deep state is trying to stop him. Will it work? Most likely not, but they're going to do their best. Now, Judicial Watch, they received 345 pages of Department of Justice records that show top FBI brass attempting to muddle James Comey's Senate testimony about Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Top FBI officials wrote Congress a letter to supplement James Comey's testimony, and a few hours later, Trump fired Comey as FBI director. Now, the new emails also show the media colluding with the FBI. I don't believe this is a shock to anyone that this is happening. This is from Judicial Watch. In an email thread starting at 6:34 a.m. on May 9, 2017, with the subject line Comey's testimony on Huma Abedin, forwarding emails was inaccurate. ProPublica, nearly a dozen top FBI officials scrambled to draft a letter to Congress about Comey's May 3rd Senate testimony. This email thread was concerned with a May 8, 2017 ProPublica report stating that Comey's most surprising revelation was that Huma Abedin, Anthony Weiner's wife and top Clinton deputy, had made a regular practice of forwarding hundreds of thousands of Clinton messages to her husband, some of which contained classified information. Comey testified that Abedin had done this so that the disgraced former congressman could print them out for her boss. FBI officials have privately acknowledged that Comey misstated what Abedin did and what the FBI investigators found. After a flurry of emails by 8:56 a.m., Comey's chief of staff, Jim Rubicki, sent the group a draft letter for Congress saying, "Below is a draft that has been reviewed by the director. Please let me know your thoughts." At 2:02 p.m., Assistant Director for Congressional Affairs Greg Bauer asked his colleagues to review the latest iteration of the draft letter to the Senate. Now, the FBI was also colluding with the media, according to emails exchanged between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. In April 10, 2017, email exchange between Strzok and Page and other redacted FBI officials with the subject line, New York Times last shot, the FBI appears to be given a preview of an upcoming article in the New York Times. Redacted emails Strzok and Page and others, Pete, Lisa, the editing is nearing completion, and we have one last shot to hear what the end result is. Do you have time later today or tomorrow that is convenient for a listening session, likely by phone in Mike's office? In an email on April 26, 2017, ProPublica reporter Peter Elkind sent the FBI a fact-check list of items in preparation for a story he was working on about James Comey and the Clinton email investigation. Elkind describes the list as a first small batch of straightforward details for fact-check purposes. Elkind notes that this information showed that Comey had ordered up files on about 30 previous cases where government had investigated mishandling of classified information. In response to Elkind's questions, 4 top FBI officials, including Strzok, Page, and Corten, were assembled as a quorum to discuss. And as we can see, Tom Fitton, he is doing a lot of work and digging up a lot of this information. Think about all the information that is still redacted that has not been turned over to Tom Fitton. I believe that tells a bigger, deeper story. And who do you think has that? I bet you Bill Barr does. Now, Trump was on Hannity and he said something very interesting. He says the Department of Justice is investigating whether Obama tapped his personal phone. And were they secretly monitoring his telephone communications? Now, this is unbelievable, and we know that Trump already knows that they have. He's just out there putting this information out there to the public to have them start asking questions. Why would he say this? How does he know this? And Trump tweeted out the following. Just revealed that the failing and desperate New York Times was feeding false stories about me and those associated with me to the FBI. This shows the kind of unprecedented hatred I have been putting up with for years with this crooked newspaper. Is what they have done legal? This Russian collusion hoax was perpetrated in part by people inside the government and in part by a compliant fake news media, Molly Hemingway, at Tucker Carlson, at Fox and Friends. The facts are starting to pour out. Stay tuned. Look what he said at the end here. The facts are starting to pour out. Stay tuned. This is the drip, drip, drip to bring everyone up to the same level that we all have been at. Because a lot of people have not been paying attention. A lot of people are now questioning it. A lot of people are wondering what is really going on because everything the mainstream media has been telling them has turned out to be fake, phony, and false. Now they're turning towards what Trump has been saying, what the alternative media has been saying, and everyone who hasn't been awake, they're scratching their heads. This is about getting people to the point where they can release all the information. Because if the Patriots, if they tried to do this a year or two back, what do you think would have happened? Do you think people would have believed? No. This is why we're getting the information about sex cults, Nexium. This is just the beginning stages. This will lead into Ray Chandler. This will go even further and bigger than anyone has ever thought. All of this is being done to get people on the same page, to get everyone up to the level so they can release all the information so it makes sense to everyone. That's why they're doing it. Now, the appeals court says Trump's family planning restrictions can now take effect. So the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals granted the Trump administration request to lift national injunctions ordered by lower federal courts in Oregon and Washington state. So he is now allowed to defund Planned Parenthood. Think about that for a second. What does that really mean? Well, let's go back to Q's Post 2398. This is November 2018. D Party Con. When you can't raise money organically through party individual donations, voter base, you steal it from the American taxpayer and give it back to yourself in the form of campaign contributions. Example 1, Planned Parenthood. $1.5 billion provided in taxpayer funding over a 3-year period. Case 1, Planned Parenthood spent $30 million, disclosed real estimates close to $65 million in taxpayer subsidies to influence the outcome of the 2018 midterm elections. Conclusion? Should it be legal for a taxpayer, Democrat, Republican, Independent, funded organization to donate massive amounts of money to the D Party in an effort to sway an election? No, because the taxpayers shouldn't be paying for any party. That's not what this is about. Think about how all this came about. Where does the government get all these funds where it's not even accounted for? They borrow it from the central bank system. They come up with a budget. They say, we need this much. There's no checks and balances. And they just get it. Then they can siphon it off. And it's not just Planned Parenthood. There's probably many other organizations that they do this with. And they have it come back to them to feed their operations. And there's many operations that are happening within this country. And this money just doesn't feed into the Democrat Party. It feeds into the intelligence apparatus. It feeds into many other things. Think about Afghanistan. Think about the poppy fields there. Where do you think that money goes? Do you think the intelligence organizations are protecting the poppy fields from the Taliban, or are they protecting it because that's their source of income? It's their source of income. It's all being dismantled. Think about what Trump is doing right now. There's peace talks now in Afghanistan. Those poppy fields, they're going to be wiped out. Actually, before the U.S. came in there were very few poppy fields. And since the U.S. has been in there, the poppy fields, they've grown since the intelligence organization has been protecting them. It's almost like the Islamic State. When the U.S., I should say the deep state, decided to fly missions to help the Islamic State, they were able to expand their territory. But right now, it's being defunded and being dismantled. We need to go after the source. And that is exactly what the Patriots are doing. And one source leads to another source. The main source is the central bank. But again, they have to remove a lot of these individuals to get to the central bank. That's the prize. Now, Judicial Watch again, they turned up some very interesting information. Judicial Watch announced today that it obtained more than 100 pages of previously classified secret documents from the Department of Defense and the Department of State, revealing that the Department of Defense almost immediately reported that the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi was committed by the Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood linked brigades of the captive Omar Abdul Rahman. and had been planned at least 10 days in advance. Rahman is known as the Blind Sheikh and is serving life in prison for his involvement in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and other terrorist acts. The new document also provides the first official confirmation that shows the U.S. government was aware of arms shipment from Benghazi to Syria. The documents also include an August 2012 analysis warning of the rise of the Islamic State and the predicted failure of the Obama policy of regime change in Syria. So Obama, Clinton, they knew all of this, and these documents show that. They knew all of this because they were running weapons. And most of us already knew this. This is just more proof. And again, who's looking into all of this? Ah, yes, Attorney General Bill Barr, Huber, Durham, and shadow investigators. Now, let's talk about what is happening in Iran. Now, the mainstream media, they've been putting out articles that Trump was ready to attack Iran, and then he called it off. Well, Trump tweeted out the following in response to these articles from the mainstream media. His first tweet was, President Obama made a desperate and terrible deal with Iran, gave them $150 billion plus $1.8 billion in cash. Iran was in big trouble, and he bailed them out, gave them a free path to nuclear weapons, and soon, instead of saying thank you, Iran yelled, "Death to America." I terminated deal, which was not even ratified by Congress, and imposed strong sanctions. They are a much weakened nation today than at the beginning of my presidency, when they were causing major problems throughout the Middle East. Now they are a bust. On Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites, and when I asked how many will die, 150 people, sir, was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it, not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone. I'm in no hurry. Our military is rebuilt, new and ready to go, by far the best in the world. Sanctions are biting, and more added last night. Iran can never have nuclear weapons, not against the USA and not against the world. Now, very interestingly, the Federal Aviation Administration announced that the U.S. has banned American-registered aircraft from flying in certain areas in the Middle East. And this is their warning notice. The Federal Aviation Administration has issued a notice to airmen prohibiting U.S.-registered aircraft from operating over the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. The NOTAM warns pilots that flights are not permitted in the overwater area of the Tehran Flight Information Region until further notice, due to heightened military activities and increased political tensions that might place commercial flights at risk. The NOTAM applies to all U.S. air carriers and commercial operators. Now, that's very interesting, and we'll be getting back to that in just a moment. But first, I wanted to read out this tweet from Anon66, and it reads as follows. So Chuck and Nancy are seen dancing after a meeting with POTUS. Everyone is wondering why. News breaks 4 hours later, a strike on Iran had been authorized, but POTUS reverses his decision at the last minute. They were dancing because they wanted the strike, knowing it would damage POTUS. Trump just effed with them again, and they took the bait again. Think about this too. Several news outlets reported the strikes had already happened. So who leaked the information? Learn to play the game. Enjoy the show. Think about that for a second. They were in there together, Pelosi, Schumer, and others, and information was leaked out that they're ready to strike. Do you think POTUS did this on purpose? Absolutely. Let me continue here. Let's go back to post 786. This was February 2018. Never gotten over the fact that Obama was able to send $1.7 billion in cash to Iran, and nobody in Congress, the FBI, or Justice called for an investigation. Reread Crumbs. What is the reason this is being brought back up? There is a purpose for every tweet and crumb dropped. Follow the money. Future proves past. The Great Awakening. No escape, no deals. Trust the plan. Fast forward to post 1454. EU sanctions Iran. Leaders of EU only care about protecting flow of money, not the safety and security of their people or world. Iran deal orchestrated for the sole purpose of lifting sanctions blockade to allow access of foreign business for individual and company-wide enrichment. Scam. So they did this to enrich themselves. And I'm saying all the people that are involved in this. Nothing to do with nukes. That was a cover-up. Hussein pallets of cash. Hussein's secret authorization to convert U.S. dollars. More coming. No mainstream media coverage. Got popcorn. So let's begin and start breaking this all down. Why was Pelosi and Schumer and others there? It was a setup. He knew the information would be leaked. It was, and the leakers are now located. He knows exactly who they are. Remember, the Patriots are monitoring all of this, and Trump doesn't do these things just to do them. It might seem like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, I want to strike, but I don't want to strike. I'm going to kill people. He knew the strike would kill people. Seriously? Did you really think the strike would kill absolutely no one? Of course he knew this. Let's continue. So who really wants war? The mainstream media, the deep state, politicians that are involved. Think about it. If this was a true strike, the mainstream media was broadcasting. The deep state players leaked it out, letting the enemy that's being attacked, they knew that it was coming. Well, isn't this treason then? Because they were giving them information. Isn't it putting our men and women in the armed forces in harm's way? Absolutely. Does Trump want war? No. Trump approves the attack on Iran, but then everything was stopped. There were no planes in the air. It almost reminds me of the North Korean ship where the mainstream media, they got word that it was heading directly to North Korea and there was going to be a confrontation. And then the ship, the aircraft carrier, was sent someplace else, and the mainstream media was scratching their head. Oh, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to direct an aircraft carrier over to North Korea. But let's continue. Ask yourself why. How do we prove to the world that Trump does not want war? He is showing the world through his actions. How do you display peace through strength? Think about what he just did. He said, wait a minute, we're going to kill people? Well, it's not worth an unarmed, unmanned drone. I don't do those type of things. I value life. Think about that for a second. So why would he order a strike and back out of it? By doing this, you can clearly see who the warmongers are and who has something to lose when the New Deal is put into place. Think about it. These people thought Trump was going to go through with it. They went ahead and made additional moves. The deep state started to talk to each other. The Patriots are picking up the chatter. The deep state, the rogue elements, are on the move. Who's watching all of this? Oh, that's right. The Patriots. Was this ever about going to war? No, it was about exposing the deep state, removing the black site, removing the rogue elements. The mainstream media, the deep state, all took the bait that Trump was going to follow through and attack Iran. The Patriots got exactly what they needed. So Trump kept the mainstream media and the world watching this all play out. He was telling everyone, look over here while we do our work over there. It was a complete and utter distraction. Well played, Patriots. Let's go back to Trump's tweet for a moment. In his last section, he said the following. On Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night. Now, this might be a typo. Maybe it was locked and loaded, because when we look at post 2504, there's something in here that says locked and loaded. Now, this was back November 2018. And at the beginning of this, it says, has POTUS ever made a statement that hasn't been proven to be correct? Future. Think timing. Down below, locked and loaded. The stage is set for prison sentences. He just set everything up. They're getting more and more information where they're going to use this against the deep state. Everything that the Patriots are doing has been planned from the very beginning. Now, the deep state, they've been sending messages to each other. Remember Maggie Haberman? Well, let's go back to post 2660. Q is talking to Maggie and giving her a chance to get off the train. And in this post, there's a tweet from Maggie Haberman. There is no smoking on this train. If you're found smoking, we'll assume you're on fire and take the appropriate action, says the Amtrak conductor. Now, Q in this post says handler is the conductor. Smoking can be bad for your health. Read the warning label. Deboard train and walk away. Once in the tunnel, there's no going back. So back then, Q was talking to Maggie Haberman, telling her, this is your chance to get off the train. She never did. So it looks like Maggie is relaying a message to the deep state. Here's her latest tweet on June 21st, 2019. A source told me 30 minutes ago that Trump was pleased with his own performance last night, loved being in command by ordering the strikes and by then ordering the stand down. And the president just tweeted it. What is she saying? Well, the translation is, we've been set up. Take action. She's letting them know that they were just set up by Trump. Now, going back to what the FAA said about the flights, where they're saying that military, commercial, the flights are at risk, and they don't want any of these flights flying around this whole entire area. Think about those deep state operatives that are in the country. They will not be able to take a U.S. flight out of the country. Now, can they take another flight? Yes. But remember, this is about tracking all these rogue elements. It's not about tracking the missiles or where they were. Most of these missile systems are mobile. They don't care about that. They're tracking the rogue elements in the country. They're listening to the chatter. This entire plan was set up, and they got exactly what they wanted. They did pretty much almost the same thing in North Korea. It was a little bit easier in North Korea. I believe Iran, they're really dug in there because, again, there's a lot of individuals that have a lot to lose, and they're not going to go down without a fight. They want a war. And you're probably wondering, why do they want the war? It would cover it all up. They wouldn't be exposed then, right? War would be a complete distraction from what was going on there. And they would be able to get out, clean it all up, and do whatever they had to do. But they didn't get it. They didn't get what they wanted. They're completely exposed. And guess what? They now know this. Trump is not doing what they want. He understands what they're all about. The Patriots understand what they're all about. And this has been planned for a very long time. And we're watching it play out right now. And whose move is it? The Patriots' move. Enjoy the show. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.